again, check in with your body. Scanning your body, toes to the top of your head. Gently open your eyes. So this is the last class on how to meditate. It does not leave meditation behind. All the Discovering Buddhism classes have meditations to accompany them on, on the different topics of the modules. So, like next month is death and rebirth. Very exciting meditations there. So how's your meditations going? Good.
Each time my thoughts are less and less. I see such a difference.
Great. Yeah, I find if you practice just this quieting of the mind, really helps the mind all through the day. I forgot to plug in my computer. Oops. Excuse me. I try to break everything. All right.
I can't remember if you said it or if I read it, but I've been trying to think of my grasp on my single point concentration as holding an egg and being tight enough that I'm not going to drop it, but loose enough I'm not going to crack it.
Oh, now I didn't say that, but it may be in the reading. That sounds familiar. This is the thing that automatically does something. Okay. We'll see how this goes. Only that's not the slide I want. Okay. This is a really good way to do this. I can see my notes. It's like magic. Not that it'll help because I can't seem to read it when I notice. So anyway, okay. So I wanted to bring up a different type of meditation because we're just trying to get familiar with the different types. So we have the I'm with it today. Placement meditation or single pointed meditation, which is basically this trying to focus on one thing. We have breath meditations which help us settle our minds down. We have analytical meditations where we're looking to get familiar either with the disadvantages of our negative states of mind and how we might be able to change that, or the advantages of positive states of mind that we already have and want to cultivate, like compassion. Really want to grow it so it gets bigger and bigger. And then, so usually when you're, once you've gotten your mind to, you're able to anchor your mind a little bit on your breath, and so things have settled down, all the distracting conversations. You can try meditating on the mind itself, where you're just present with it. So you might notice when thoughts arise, but you don't follow them. You might note what they are, future, past, if you need to, in order but you're looking for patterns. But just really getting familiar with the space in which our thoughts arise, because that's also mind. It's part of the, we hold quite a bit in our minds. So that, it's like we might not be paying attention to lots of details or something, but we actually take in quite a bit. Our mind holds quite a bit. So like when you're sitting and just being aware of the mind, you'll notice things that are from your body awareness, or your eye awareness, or your ear awareness, as opposed to when you're really single pointed on an object, whether it's the breath or the image of the Buddha or the experience of compassion. All that other stuff starts to drop away because you're trying to cultivate that single pointedness of mind. So that's sort of the difference between them. So in one, your focus is on the mind itself, and the mind itself is not static. So it has thoughts arise, it has experiences of the senses arise, those kind of things. So it's a different experience. But when you're one-pointed, you're really trying hard to not get pulled away by anything other than the object that you're focused on. So, and then there's glance meditation or review meditation. Review meditation is just like it sounds. You're trying to get familiar with, say, a particular meditation, even a certain topic or something. So you're just reviewing it. You might have it in front of you, so you're getting familiar with it. You say you want to learn it by heart so that you can reflect on each point without having to look at the piece of paper. Glance meditation can be like that, but it's also useful in looking at, like, the main thing it's recommended for is for looking at the whole path, so that you get sort of this overview of the whole path to enlightenment. And then, like the Discovering Buddhism series covers sort of like the beginner exploration of the whole path, from what is the mind and meditation. And then we're going through, the different points of the path that you need to understand. And someday, if you want to become a Buddha, you have to realize these things, blah, 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 So they recommend that you get familiar with the whole path in a very basic way, then go through the details of the path in a much, in a deeper way. And then, you can use that glance meditation to bring up really quickly your understandings now that you've studied bits of it. So it's a way to kind of, it's like memorizing an outline. It's really a bit like that. And so, like, there are a couple of texts that are really good to use for that purpose. One is The Foundation of All Good Qualities, which I think is in this book. I could be wrong. And there's also the 3 Principal Aspects of the Path, which could be in this book. Maybe an assumption it was in this book. They're short. Usually under long run prayers. I say with confidence. I have no clue. I don't know why I'm saying that with confidence. Long run prayers. Calling the Guru from afar. The foundation of all good. Yes, so they both are in there. Okay. So like the foundation of all good qualities is like 4 pages or something. Yeah, 4 pages, 3 principles of the path. It's 4 pages, 3 pages. And they have nice little headings so that you kind of know what the point is. So like, the purpose of generating renunciation, how to generate renunciation, the definition. This is so Tibetan. It's just like, this is exactly how their texts are, The definition of having generated renunciation, then that's the first principle of the path. That's renunciation. That's when you kind of go, okay, I'm sorry, the state of affairs is not good enough. I'm done with this cyclic existence stuff. Let's find something better. And the purpose of generating the mind of enlightenment. This is the second principle of the path. This is bodhicitta. This is that desire to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. So it's the purpose, how to generate it, the definition of how to generate it, and the reason. Okay, and then we get to wisdom. That's the third principle of the path. So the reason to meditate on right view, showing what the right view is, the definition of not having completed the analysis of the right view, the definition of having completed the analysis of the right view. Oh, it's very cool. I never looked at the headings. I don't think the headings were there when I was learning that as text. A glance meditation on all the important points of the long rip. We've got all bases covered here. This handy little book. So anyway, so we'll use that as one of our kind of meditations in future classes to kind of get us familiar with the whole path while tackling, so one of the reasons why death and rebirth is close up, it's towards the beginning, is because we need to become familiar with the fact that we really are going to die. It's not just an intellectual concept. We will run out of time of this life. So if you're into procrastination, this is not going to work well for you. We want to inspire ourselves to go, okay, maybe I've, done enough planning. Maybe now I'll actually do the work. So it's just a way of getting more inspired. So how to meditate is important throughout. It's not like it's you just learn this now and that's it. It's what we'll need in order to understand each of the parts of the path in order to keep opening, our minds to wisdom, which is the last bit. So it's not that we just waited the last bit to develop our wisdom, but it's with each of these topics, we are developing our wisdom. And then, we tackle emptiness, which is how things exist. So we try to understand reality. So first we try to understand day-to-day, how do we get our behavior under control? Why is our mind out of control? How to take control, all that kind of stuff. How to kind of shift the direction of our mind. So the single pointed, it's not really, the breath meditations and learning how to let your mind settle, to where it's more like the deep of the ocean, less like the waves on the top, is incredibly useful in day-to-day life so that you can always go back to that place if your day is getting a little stressful. But you need practice in order for it to have any effect. Because if you're not already somewhat experienced at it, you probably won't be able to do it during the middle of a stressful meeting. Because one of the things about developing the ability to observe your mind and stay kind of steady is the ability to be sitting in a meeting and still be in contact with that still spot, and be paying attention to what's going on in the meeting. And that takes a little bit of practice. But it helps us from getting so hooked so that we can hear what's being said and not be reactive, but really be much more thoughtful and respond to things, especially if it's stressful. As I watched the hearings today, I obviously haven't practiced enough. So it was very stressful for both parties. It was wrenching to watch. So glance meditation is like a map. It's also like painting a picture. You know, you start just getting the outline. You know how people who can draw or can paint, they kind of tend to sketch. They have sort of an outline on it. Maybe, you know, so they get the basics up there, and then it gets deeper, and then it gets deeper, and then it gets, you know, blah, blah, blah. But this is the practice. It's like you won't find that we cover radically different topics over the course of time. And if you come to a Buddhist center, it can seem very repetitive, because it is. Because we need to keep revisiting the same points until we get a realization of them. Till there's no longer any hesitation in our actions. You know, it's like people who finally wake up and realize, oh yeah, that's right, I'm gonna die. And then they quit wasting time. You know, they just start spending their time better. You know, the time that they have choices over, you know, but they, you know, they drop some worries. I don't know if any of y'all have experienced that when, like, say, something real big crisis happens in your life, or like when my mother died, you know, there was, for a very brief span of time, a little bit of clarity about what was important, you know, and it just, I didn't seem to worry about all sorts of stuff that, you know, after that little piece of time went by, arose again. You know, so people, when they have a realization of something, you know, a lot of the just that static that we get caught up in, you know, just kind of isn't there. It doesn't disturb us as much. And so that's the kind of realizations we're trying to develop along the path. Is this sort of like, okay, I get this, you know. So, and then we want to, you know, develop it to the point where we don't lose it after 2 months. That takes a process. So you go do it again and again. Yeah. And each time you understand it differently, you know, at a different level or from a different angle, because you've changed since the first time you looked at it. And you've got, you know, so whatever. All right, I'm being redundant. Okay. This is just our, you know, our resident iguana doing the sun salutation, I think. Okay. So to review the mechanics of meditation. So it's always good when you first start to kind of check in with your body, partly because it brings your attention to the present moment. It helps you, you know, be present for the meditation. And you can spend a little time, you know, a whole minute doing it, and, you know, taking your time. And then it's really good to check in with your mind, you know, to see, are you calm? Are you agitated? Are you hooked by something? So you're not really present, you know. You don't have to judge it.
There's a question about that. Isn't there always a story, though, attached to that? So when I'm trying to do that, like, just take a look. It's like, well, there's a story there. I am.
Only if you follow it.
Okay.
You can make a story right away. It's usually interrupting a story, you know. So, but it's really about recognizing, oh, I'm agitated right now, or I'm ruminating about something right now.
Yeah.
You just, you know, it's just kind of checking in. If you dive in to the story, then, you know, there you go, off into the, you know, the usual stuff. The purpose of the posture of meditation is to find a stable posture. It's, you know, the formal, like this person does a nice job of this formal posture with your elbows out so air can circulate, and your hands are up, because this is an alert posture. You can't, you know, it's not slouchy, you know, it's not, okay, I'm good for a nap now. kind of posture. It's alert. It helps keep your energies balanced, the subtle energies, because you keep your hands touching, your thumbs touching. So all of that's about stability. Finding the right height. I know that a lot of men find that if they're sitting on a cushion, that they need a few cushions up because the muscles in their legs and their quadriceps or something will not loosen really well. So they really need some height, because it's always good to have your bottom above your knees. Although the Tibetans tend to not sit on a cushion at all. So maybe it's just for those of us who are so accustomed to sitting on chairs. Again, this helps us find a stable posture. Why would that be important?
So you're comfortable.
Well, comfort helps. What else?
Keeps you alert.
Well, it does keep you alert.
Distracted by everything.
Yes, and it keeps you in a posture that you don't have to change every 5 minutes, which means if you're trying to develop your concentration, your body doesn't get in the way. And if you're trying to extend your meditation so you can sit for an hour, it really helps if you're in a good posture. So it's about, so at the beginning, if you like me at all, there isn't such a thing as a good posture. They all bother you. You're just not familiar. They're all uncomfortable. So you have to pick one that doesn't seem to be hurting your body at all and get used to it. And then it gets a little easier. So it's not the most important one, however. And also this idea of like sitting up straight and lifting your chest up, because it keeps you open. Even that posture, it's sort of like, okay, go ahead, tell me something I don't know. I can hear it. So, that can be helpful. Relaxing your jaw and keeping the tongue on the back of your, like on the top of the roof of your mouth helps with saliva. I don't know about you, but in group meditation, it's like, okay, I haven't coughed in 3 years, but I will now. And it's just about learning to like kind of relax this. We get so nervous about it that of course we're going to cough. Then your neck bent, that's more about, just slightly to keep your gaze softly in front of you without actually looking at something, But keeping your eyes open helps with being awake. So that's helpful. Your chin slightly. So, but mostly you just find a position you can be relatively stable in. And with analytical meditation, it's not so important. But when you have an experience of something, you want to be stable in that and not let, your body interrupt it or whatever. So every now and then it's helpful, if you're realizing you're getting sleepy, to reassert your posture, sit up again, just kind of open your eyes wider, all that stuff. If you realize you're getting tense, try to breathe into those spots of tension and then just come back to your meditation. When you're uncomfortable, it's good to give it a little time to see if they'll just stop. It just will pass, because it often does. And that's part of the process of getting used to sitting. Don't hurt yourself though. Move before it's damage. So restlessness, that's just going to come up. Your mind's going to want to do something else, do something different, and you just have to keep bringing your mind back to your object again and again. Sometimes it helps to note what's going on in the mind, sound, distant, so that you can then drop it. If you're really bad at this, and I started that way, I'm sure my teachers wouldn't agree with this, but I kept a piece of paper next to me so I could just write it down. And then I couldn't tell myself I was going to forget it. Well, I have to keep thinking. You know, I could say, hey, it's done. It's on your list. And eventually you don't need to do that anymore. It's about developing that habit of saying, you know, it's an excuse. It's not real. This thing, this habit you have of thinking that you can't possibly just focus. You know, I'm sorry, I have too many important things to remember. And it's a lie. Total lie. So, in remembering impermanence, you know, letting them all just, they are there for a second and then they go away. As long as we don't engage them, follow them, feed them. You can even, you know, take a cold shower. Wash your face if you're sleepy. You know, like we said early on, you kind of really find a good temperature for you so that you're not, it's not too warm and you get drowsy, and it's not too cold to where it's a distraction. And it's not easy to meditate after eating because you get sleepy. So either don't eat before or give yourself time for digestion. And skip late night TV. Always a good plan. So who's had any problems with expectations? You said things have been good. So try not to make an expectation. So yeah, just let it, you know, whatever it is, you know, just stay. You know. Certainly don't compare yourself to others, because first of all, if you can't read their mind, you really don't know how they're doing. They may look, Nicole might be sitting here and have 17 lists in her head going on, you know. So it's really not useful to try to guess where you should be with it. It's not relevant, you know. So, and it really is about just showing up and accepting whatever's happening. You just show up. Oh, and this is what it is today. Just don't judge. Sometimes, depending on, you know, our mindset, we might have lots of different things come up that we regret. Yeah. So we have to be careful not to sink into guilt, you know, and not follow those thoughts either, you know, unless it's your topic of meditation. Oh, you know, I've really been, what's a nice word? Short with people. So, you know, and you want to work on that, and you want to remember that, you know, that this is not leading you where you want to go. So that might be your, you know, your topic that you're looking at. But you don't sit there and spend the time thinking about how many times you've done it. That's just, you know, that's just trying to, you know, like, oh, I can't change. Look at me. I've done it 3 gazillion times. So, you know, that doesn't help. So it's just looking, you know, you have, yeah, whatever. Okay. So, you can schedule these things if you know that you have some habits of mind, like something's coming up and you know you're going to worry about it. You can schedule that. Okay, for 15 minutes from 9 to 9:15, I'm going to worry, and you just have at it, you know, and then you set it aside, you know, so that when it comes up in your mind, you can go, not on my calendar. Whatever you need to say to yourself, you know, because certain habits of mine are not helpful. So when you recognize that, it's fine to keep setting them aside. You know, we don't have to give them power. You know, we don't have to feel like, well, worry's arisen. So, hey, you know, I have to do something about that. No, you don't. You could recognize that it's an unskillful state of mind. It doesn't help. You know. Eventually, we'll talk about purification practice and how we can look at the end of the day and kind of go, oh, not so skillful here, there, and everywhere. And do a little practice, kind of let that go, make the decision to try to do better tomorrow, then rejoice about all those this and that you did well today. So, and that's sort of like saying, okay, I'm going to set this period of time instead of trying to ruminate over it and start to feel guilty about it and feel like I'm never going to handle on this. You go, well, I'm going to do my practice later. So this idea that we have to have really good conditions to meditate just is a reflection of our inexperience. That really, just like when you're really interested in something, don't get pulled away by noise, by other people's conversations, by worries, for that matter. If you're in the grips of a book you're really enjoying, or watching a movie you really are, into, you're just not carried away. Well, this is the same thing. It's just not entertaining. It's not an escape. It's not an escape. It's actually like, oh, I'm living my life now. Oh no. So this is what it looks like, kind of thing. So we have to remember that it isn't that we don't have the skill, it's whether we're applying the skill. So letting the sounds and letting whatever it is that your mind keeps going, oh gosh, I wish that fan would quit making that little sound every time it goes around. I have a fan like that. You accept that you are being cooked by it, that you're responsible for the fact that it's pulling you away. You are choosing to be pulled away. It doesn't feel like that at all. This is what we have to, work against. And eventually, they say, those who are better at it than I am, that it simply will not disturb you. And of course, even though you won't have a meditation like that every day, you will have meditations like this, where you just are not pulled away. So, yay. So you rejoice about that and you don't get attached. Okay, so it's this coming back to the present. That's sort of what it is when you bring your mind back to whatever your object is. Oh yeah, I've gone off into the past or the future. I've gone off into some story. I'm coming back. And we really need to be friendly about it. Like Pema Chodron likes to say, unconditional friendliness to ourselves. Whether we're bored, whether we're hurting, whether we have indigestion, whether disturbing things are arising in the mind, you just keep sitting. And this is one of the hardest things to do, is to just stay. It reminds me, what they talk about with the Buddha. He's sitting under the Bodhi tree, and they say all the Maras arise to distract him. And so that's this idea that, all of a sudden you have visions of beautiful people that are alluring and trying to, distract you. You have pictures of all the things, all the things that make you angry so that you can get distracted by that, So they're all, and this is exactly what your mind's going to do. It's going to give you other things to think about and try to pull you away, because that's its habit. I mean, if we really look at what our mind does all day long, we're escaping from the present moment. You're either going to the future, going to the past, daydreaming, or just escaping. That's probably a mistake. And it is also a reflection in your meditation, since what are you looking at? Your own mind, your own habits of mind, that we're not comfortable with ourselves as we are. And And so we want to develop a certain, oh, this is okay. This is as good a starting point as any. And not be rejecting of where we are. It's just, oh, here I am today. Somewhat hateful and selfish. Because there are days like that. And hopefully the meditation will prevent you from carrying that all day. But, because it becomes very amusing. It does become entertaining. Because if you can have that friendliness towards yourself, as if your best friend is talking about what a jerk they've been, and you're listening to them going, we've all been like that. Don't worry, don't make it a big deal, da 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 da. We want to have that attitude towards ourselves. That helps us move forward. So when we're hooked, so there's a teaching by Pema Chodron called "Don't Bite the Hook," which I really like. It's a good audio file. So instead of running with the story, feeding the story, you stay with whatever has arisen, which we really don't like to do. So if we're angry, or we're hurt, or we're sad, or we're jealous, or we're, irritated, frustrated, what other things arise? I don't know. Anyway, instead of trying to suppress it, I'm not going to feel that way, or trying to justify it, everybody would be angry. You just experience that state of mind and watch it go away. It's impermanent. And that takes a little bit of practice because we tend to feed it. We either suppress it or feed it. So we need to be able to just sit with it. There I am. I'm jealous. Ew. Doesn't feel good to feel jealous. But just sitting with it and letting it will pass. If we don't grab hold of it, it will pass. Get familiar. This is an opportunity to get familiar with your physical symptoms of these types of things. So that, like, if you're getting jealous, you'll start recognizing it. And you'll realize, oh, I'm not having a good reaction here because I'm jealous. I'm not being really supportive or happy for this person because I'm jealous. So you can see that and get ahead of it and, give yourself some space so that you can have the other states of mind that you also will have because you're happy for this person. We don't just have one reaction to things. So.
Also, the helpful kind of dig down or examine the story as we were doing that a little more.
I don't think so.
I'm jealous. Well, why am I feeling this jealousy? Because I'm scared.
That's later.
Okay.
If you do it while you're feeling jealous, you are not letting yourself experience the jealousy. You are shoving it down. You're trying to talk yourself out of it. And that's not particularly helpful. You want the jealousy to pass and then look at it. You have to look at it later, But if you skip the step of just, oh, I'm jealous, this is what this is, you will not learn how it feels. You won't get familiar with its impermanence, But then you do want to explore it later. It's just that when you're when it's arisen, you're out of control. We need to keep reminding ourselves that these states of mind are not reliable. They are distorted. And the only way to discover that is to get familiar with it. To just kind of, oh. So that's what that is. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. It's just, it's, I mean, once you become really familiar with it, then when you have that sensation, then you can use all those reasons why, okay, let this go, but it's you want to avoid the suppressing of it or the feeding of it. Just wait till it passes, which is not always easy, or maybe never easy. But this is the key. Everything, all things, all thoughts, all emotions, everything is impermanent. So it can help reduce our attachment just by knowing there's, good luck holding on, because it's going to end. So when you have that sensation of grasping after something that you have to get familiar with, you can, recognize that it's an attempt to make something permanent that isn't. And then it can also reduce the power of our anger or irritation, because we too will end. And so how much of our lives do we want to spend in these states that are miserable? So we can help, give us a little bit of distance. It will end, especially if we don't feed it. And the more that we work with our own impermanence, so that we quit grasping at a self that doesn't exist at all, this permanent, yes, I'm going to die, but not today, mind, which is not true. We have no evidence of that. We can make better choices when we really are aware that, hey, this is your time. Do you really want to spend it this way? So you can step back from these miserable feelings and say, okay, moving on now. I'm not going to stay there. And all of this takes practice. But in little stuff, it doesn't take a lot of practice. It just takes remembering. Don't sweat the small stuff. And then when you're this, we just need to remember that no matter what's arising, this idea, like I was really good at, like exchanging my states of mind. Like, oh, I don't think I like feeling hurt, so I'll get mad instead. So I would just exchange it. So, that's called suppression. Doesn't work. It will rear its ugly head again. So, and then comfort. Instead of seeking, oh, I think I'll have that little bit of coconut ice cream, like, or I'll have that, whatever, or, I'm going to watch that TV show I like. We're just, we just are self-medicating. A little bit of that, of course, it's not like we have to, but it's just that when we realize that we're always running away from it because we haven't learned how to stay with discomfort, with dissatisfaction. And the more we can just be comfortable with that. We can do that for others. If you've been a parent, of course, you've had to train yourself in how to do that. Because you can't, kids get sick, kids, there are all sorts of things you have to do because you're responsible for them. My parents would, if we ever went out to eat and any of us misbehaved, we left. And it didn't matter when it was. We could have, getting ready to take that first bite of food, and if you're acting out, well, we're leaving now. And it would be so embarrassing. It really worked well. But so we have to, understand that if we want to work with our minds, we have to be tolerant of what's arising. And if, as we practice, we find that space to make choices. Because because we've stepped back a little bit and we're able to kind of find some room to decide, not practicing that anymore. Slowly, slowly. Don't, obviously when we're rushing through a day, not likely to happen. Conditions are too weak. If we're, but on a weekend or when our schedule's lighter or something, we have a little more space and we'll see our progress. So, what's really nice though is sometimes you'll find that in times of, great stress, you're really able to apply it because you're so motivated. It's like, oh, this would be a good time. So that's nice to discover. And this is just an interesting strategy, is to really ask yourself as often as possible, how much of this is happening to me, around me, or is it really just part of my mind? Is it just a story I'm telling myself? So that you start becoming aware of how often, because of your expectations or your filters or your worries, that's my ear worries. Fear, worries, whatever all those things going on for us, that can radically change the way we view something. So that we hear the tone of voice differently, people's facial expressions differently. We just read all sorts of things into situations that aren't there. They're complete fabrications that, we walk into the room with. And surprise, surprise, everybody meets our expectations because we've written a script and we're just following it. It has nothing to do with reality. Usually it's a mixture of the two, but often it's not, especially if we have some heightened anxiety or fear or sadness going on. We're much more vulnerable to these stories because we think it's all out there. And we, in spite of ourselves, in spite of our intelligence, in spite of our compassion, all those things, we really still act as if the world revolves around us. We really do think people's facial expressions reflects how they feel about us. We really do think, people's words are all about us. It's we don't stop to think that maybe it has nothing to do with us. And it's important to start noticing that. Like I'll often ask people, I'll say, like, did I say something that was, whatever, I don't, no, and, they might go, oh, no, I'm thinking about something else entirely, or they might go, yes, in fact, you have to be willing to take the consequences of your questions. Yeah.
So these neuroscientists did an experiment where they used a makeup artist to paint a terrible looking scar on the subject's forehead.
Right.
And then they let the person see themselves in the mirror and see how awful it looked. And then they had took the mirror away and the artist said, oh wait, I have to fix that a bit. And then secretly wiped the whole thing off. So there was no blemish. Then they were asked to go out into public and record how many times people looked at their scar. And inevitably,
Yeah.
It was many, many times they recorded, even though they had nothing there.
It's funny, and we really are studying the mind a lot more, at least the brain a lot more. We can see what's going on in the physical support of the mind, and it's really interesting. So I love watching all those things. But sometimes the conclusions, you have to be aware. I did statistics for health research and stuff. And so you have to be, really careful about Are they using the right stuff? You know, their conclusions, is it based on anything legitimate? So I used to be able to do that. I can't, I don't care enough to have any clue about statistics anymore. So I'm not so good at it anymore, especially since meta-analysis has become so big. But then I don't know much about that at all. So,
Interesting. That goes to the point too of what we're really capable of, both positively and negatively. The classic experiment is the building experiment,
Right.
Where you have
where you torture someone.
right, or students are saying, you're captives and you have to perform these atrocities on them. Before you know it,
Everybody's playing
everybody's right there. They have to stop the experiment.
Yeah. Because it was unethical.
Right. So training, I feel like training my mind is also guarding against that.
Absolutely.
Situations, not just
But it's not from out here. We need to realize that we've got all sorts of things going on in our mind that we haven't bothered to question and investigate and say, is it true? Is it, am I basing this? What am I basing this on? Like if you look at your judgments of others, if you allow yourself to go beyond why they annoy you and actually look at what are you basing your judgment of them on, it can become pretty hilarious because you start to realize how really shallow it is and how it's really all about you. And that can be very a little unnerving when you first start to investigate, but it's very freeing because it's kind of like, well, I can drop that, and drop that, and and as soon as the judgment arises, you can go, oh, what does this tell me about myself? what, where am I in this picture? So it's helpful. It helps your mind at ease because, the less we practice judging others or ourselves, the habit gets reduced. This is how it works. So if we tend to be impatient with others, we're probably really impatient with ourselves. So if we practice patience, all of that will be reduced. It's not like a miracle cure, but so the more that we can bring up to our mind, this is why, settling our mind is helpful. Just discovering, oh, there is some stillness there. That's helpful. And then also, when you reflect on your habits, or even if you don't know it's a habit, but you suspect perhaps you have this habit, and you look at it from a, it's not from your, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, your ego or your reputation or your, whatever. If you just step back and just look at it and see if it's skillful or not, see that it's, that it isn't even, it's not the kind of person you want to be, it just helps deconstruct this forceful habit energy. Yeah, right.
Do prostrations or doing something physical help
Yeah.
settle the mind?
Yeah, it depends on who you are. So some people absolutely cannot start with sitting meditation. They just can't do it. Their mind's all over the place. But most of them start with walking meditation, or they start with prostrations. They start with something where, okay, while I'm doing this, like with prostrations, it's really good to do it as a purification practice. Like, okay, while I'm doing this, I'm going to think about, the things I regret and generate this strong resolve not to do them again. And I'm going to, I'm doing the prostrations because I'm relying on the teachings. And, this is one of the activities they say is, and also, it's a practice of humility and respect. It's because it's all about training. It's all about, okay, I'm going to keep my mind on object. Sooner or later, though, you want to generalize it, that skill into more and more activities so that you can do it while you're sitting. So you can do it while you're walking around going through your day. So you know, there, because sooner or later we need to sit with our minds. Whether it's informal sitting practice or not, we have to find our way there. Because if we're trying to train our minds, that's where we have to be. It happens to be where it is.
So would part of this exercise be looking at thoughts with equanimity, in that if I'm going to apply this question to that would be bad thoughts, right?
Yeah, how fast can we judge it? Yeah.
Right, until I automatically, until I then have to apply this to pleasant thoughts, or questioning whether they're on the outside.
Yes, and it's well, partly because so much of pleasant thoughts are involved with attachment. So yes, so we want to look at those too, but we also want to look at. I realized this today. I was looking over the notes for like the test, because, or making sure that people who take the test can pass it, because I bothered to mention it. So listen up. Anyway, I realized an awful lot of the meditations in the future modules will be about our positive states of mind. They'll be about how to cultivate compassion, how to cultivate equanimity, how to increase our positive states of mind. They're not all about reducing anger, reducing craving, reducing which is also important. And I tend to not mention that a whole lot, and that's not correct. That we also want to. I mean, this is really important. So I apologize. This is just not my habit. We want to notice when we're being compassionate, when we're being patient. We want to notice how we feel when that happens, because we want to remind ourselves that that feels pleasant. It's not just getting the ice cream or the sex or that's all the truth. Oh well. So, I'm very basic, Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, what else? What else is it? Okay. All right, move on. So, yeah. But we want to understand that we have these pleasant experiences when we feel purposeful, when we feel helpful, when we feel like, when we have compassion, all of those things, that's a meaningful existence, and we like it. So we want to notice how it feels to do those things. If you have to encourage yourself to spend time helping others or something, then you use that information to remind yourself, okay, well, maybe I won't sleep in, Saturday morning, but I'll go help so-and-so, or I'll go, I'll volunteer for Meals on Wheels. So it's really cultivating familiarity with those states of mind as well, so that we can, we like to help. I mean, this is our Buddha nature. This is why, the teachers say we can be confident that we have the potential to become a Buddha. We have all the good qualities needed to become a Buddha. They just haven't been fully cultivated, and we still are approaching them from the self-focused angle. And so we do, we have to learn how to, instead of putting ourselves first, our loved ones first, we have to reverse that. That's what the practice of exchanging or equalizing and exchanging ourselves for others is about. Is this idea that that we start putting others first, and there's happiness there. But our self-focus is a large part of our suffering, because this kind of existence, according to the Buddha, is the nature of suffering. Our bodies are fragile. They develop all sorts of things that make us help suffering. It's quite obvious, aging, all of those things. But then, just the fact that everything's impermanent. so you can't hold on to anything. All of these things. So so if we're all self-focused, we're going to notice every single one of them. You know, every moment of the day that isn't going our way, we'll be aware of because we're totally focused on that. So the more we can drop that focus, then right away our suffering is reduced. These things take practice, though. So we don't just we develop our concentration on the cushion. We develop, you know, this ability to settle the mind, to be present with the mind, and then we also cultivate, you know, how to be more compassionate, how to be more patient, equanimity. So that makes sense. So now I've said that. So the purpose of meditation is to become familiar with positive states of mind. Shall I just read the answer on the test? So sad. I bet I did this last time too. So, and to reduce, you know, to get familiar with the disadvantages of our negative states of mind. You know. So we want to recognize the benefits of the positive ones, and the disadvantages of the negative ones. So what's a negative mind? This is not a test, don't worry.
It has to be positive, so you can't think of negative, right?
Anything that causes suffering.
Yeah, anything that leads us to suffering. That's why some states of mind that don't feel good, like, you know, regret, can be a positive state of mind. If it's as long as you're regretting a non-virtuous action. If you regret a virtuous action, that's not considered positive. It's a variable state of mind. So what questions do you have about meditation? Do you feel like you have any clue? Yes, please.
So in this process of meditation, when those feelings or moments come to your mind, you want to let them go. How could I learn to differentiate between letting them go versus suppressing?
I think a lot of it is just developing the ability to just stay and experience it. So say sadness arises, okay? So it's there, and you don't think about why you're sad or the story around the sadness. You just are aware of that feeling of sadness. If you can stay there, it'll stop on its own. If you start thinking about it, you might be feeding it. If you start thinking about it and trying to like not feel that way, you'll start suppressing it. But if you'll just sit with it, not going anywhere with your thoughts and just stay, it will pass. And you'll get better and better at recognizing when it's past, you know, so that you don't have to feed it. It means that we will, because of our habit, you know, we may not wait till it's passed on its own, and we may suppress it. But with practice of just not immediately trying to comfort ourselves or escape it, we can stay with it. You know, it's going to depend on how much power it has, how long that takes. You know? But it's really just, and sometimes, like if you're going through a really hard time, something's happening that's very difficult. So these states of mind arise often. You will have to do it often. You know, you might pause, you know, you're standing there doing something and realize, wow, you know, I'm really sad or I'm really angry or I don't know, whatever it is, you know, and it arises and you just have to wait, you know, not distract yourself, not so you can heal. You know, these things don't heal if we ignore them you know. But if we feed them, they don't heal either. Get bigger, you know. So it's just a process of staying without a conversation about it. You know? And sometimes it's very brief, and then you want to feed it.
So if you were speaking to someone about that and that would happen, it'd probably be better if you just said, you know what, let me deal with this and stop talking to someone at that moment and dealt with it.
Depends on how forceful it is. I mean, I know my father when my mom died. He was a lawyer, you know, and he's very confident, you know, person. So, he's actually a really lovely man. So, but he said he'd be talking to a client, and suddenly he'd just start crying. You know, they just come, and you just have to say, "I'm sorry, my wife just died," and you know, so, you know, I thought that was such a good model. Just, you know, okay, and it will pass. But he didn't fight it. He didn't try to hide it, and he didn't do anything. He just let it be. So it's kind of interesting. So it just depends on the circumstances. Like he couldn't stop, and he was working, you know. So it wasn't like he could stop, but he had to acknowledge what because it was visible, you know. So it's more of just because as you practice, you will find the space to be able to be inwardly present for yourself while still doing things. Have you ever noticed how many senior Tibetan or monastics do mantras while you're talking to them? Like Venerable Ravina, you know, like she often is just doing her mantras. She's still totally focused on you, but she's doing her mantras. It's a skill she's developed. It's an ability to do both, you know. But it's because of that space. And the mind is very spacious, but we don't know that. You know? So this is why at this stage, you know, multitasking doesn't really work because we don't have the room. You know, but the more we cultivate this, you know, get familiar with the stillness of mind that is there. We don't have to create it, it is there. We just have to get underneath all those waves. Those are also there. You know, it just takes time. So sometimes you may have to just say, you know, I need a moment to go, you know, whatever. Just depends if it's appropriate. But you don't have to reveal yourself to others. They may not want you to reveal yourself. Please don't share. So, you know, but I mean, you know, but it's okay to, if the conditions are such that you can just kind of realize, you know, I often have to just say to somebody, I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. Because I've done, you know, I've stepped back, you know, and I'm not listening at all. I realize, oh, I'm sorry, I haven't heard the last 3 things you've said. And you just have to say, I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. You know? Because if you really want to hear them, you need them to know you didn't hear them. So you know, please repeat it. You know, it's you know, that hiding it is about your reputation. You know, it has nothing. It doesn't do anything for them. So we have to be. That's that friendliness. You know, like, oh, sorry, I wasn't listening. Sorry, I'm not perfect. You know, I'm okay, but I want to know. So please, if you can, tell me again.
Your name again.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
That's the word.
Yeah. Tell me how to pronounce it again. My personal favorite. So pronounce. Yeah. Well, what were we talking about earlier? Kalpa. You know, I don't even know these foreign words. So. So respecting the process, recognizing that if you value your mind, you give the attention it needs. So just like it, you have to pay attention to what you eat. You have to pay attention if you exercise. You know, if you want to pay attention to the job you're doing at work, you want to pay attention to whatever. I mean, anything that you value, you know, you need to pay attention to your mind. And so that needs space. And yes, sometimes you have to go, you know, I'm not doing this activity anymore. I don't have time. You know, I need to spend some time on, on me, on my mind. You know? So in addition to the gym and the body aspect of of this mind, body, person thing, I need to spend some time on my mind. So you give up, the favorite TV shows, or actually, probably not the favorite TV shows. At least give up the ones you really don't like and you just have on. It's just like, this morning, it's so stupid. I tend to play one game of solitaire in the mornings, and I only play games you can win. I refuse to, why bother? I mean, I don't care. I already, so, but I'll play one. And this morning I got caught one that I just wasn't going to win, So I thought, go, put it down now. Just because you won the last 29 days, you can let go the 30th. But you get caught and then you get distracted, right? And then you realize you're doing it again. You're playing the stupid game again, and you're just killing time like you have time to waste. So, so it's not that we don't need downtime and that we don't need time to relax and we don't just need time to be stupid. Apparently I need time to be stupid, but it's about finding our pace so that we give ourselves enough time to work on what's important to us, and not lose that time to stuff that really isn't.
Is music a bad choice for a single point meditation?
Yes, it's outside of yourself. It might be a good place to start, but first of all, it changes. So it's hard to be single pointed on something that changes. But it might be good for settling the mind down. But I don't think it's outside of yourself. So it's just like looking at the flame of a candle. That's not what you're trying to develop. You're trying to develop a mental focus. So not a visual focus, not an ear focus. You're trying to develop a mental focus. So we use the breath, but eventually it's really not the breath. It becomes very, very subtle. And then it's just really you're meditating on the moment. Am I making any sense here?
You were saying that it's good to start every meditation with a breath meditation.
Yeah, settle the mind, yeah.
So say I have the basic breath one, but then I also like the 9 round.
Mm-hmm.
So do the breath one and then the 9 round, or
you don't need that's double duty.
okay.
Yeah. So generally the 9 round breathing. That's the one where you breathe in one side, the nose, and then do the reverse, and then do the whatever. It's so not helpful. So, but its main purpose is to really, when you can't settle your mind, when it's really to just settle it, because you're really focused on it. You got to remember which side of the nose am I breathing in, and which side of my exhaling, all that stuff. So it's a really helpful, more forceful way to get your mind present. Now, you can do that 3 times. So you can do 3 sets of 9. But if you're not needing it, if you're already pretty settled, you don't want to be attached to it.
Right, and I find that I use that one when I need to be more settled.
Yes.
So it's okay to do that, use the regular breath one for most times, and then use that.
Oh, absolutely. That's what it's for.
Okay.
And everybody has to find their different techniques. Some people have to count their breaths. Some people can't stand counting their breaths. So it's really just, like if you realize all those, you have to watch yourself with honesty, because, sometimes when we go, oh, I just can't do it that way, blah, blah, blah. So I'm just not going to count my breath. I'm just going to, be one with my breathing. Actually, you're really not. And the counting is what reminded you. The counting was what reminded you, oh, yes, I've been distracted again. I only got to 3. This is where we have to be honest with ourselves. It's just, that's different than saying counting the breath distracts me. It pulls me, away So, we have to find out, and it'll be different on different days. It's just a process of being present with whatever it is today. And starting to learn all the lies you tell yourself, about why you can't meditate.
About listening to somebody guiding you.
Yeah.
Is that?
I think it's a very good way to start with beginning meditations, particularly analytical meditations, or just if you're just not familiar with meditating, to get yourself to settle down. It's a really good choice. So like this particular module online, the How to Meditate module on the FDMT website, has all the audio files, and it's free. What was it? Calm Up Fighting 9 or something. Anyway, the code's right there when you go to it on the website. So they have all their audio files, so that could be a good place.
It's kind of like listening to music, or just sort of like a distraction, and just
Not if you're focused on the topic. See, the music isn't about compassion. It's not cultivating. It's not looking at the disadvantages of anger. It's not even single pointed. Guided meditations are not single pointed meditations.
I guess the one that we've been doing is just, he talks about like relaxing here, relaxing, like
That's a body scan
That's
meditation.
a body scan meditation. It seems like that works for me.
In terms of what?
It kind of keeps me connected to okay, what's he going to say next? He's going to say now, relax. Like he'll make a little thing in between.
Yeah. Eventually, you want to be able to do that for yourself. Because then.
I'm getting hooked on that.
Right. Because what you're not doing is training yourself in it. You're just following instructions.
Following instructions.
Yeah. And so it's a good way to begin. Eventually, you have to be disciplined to do it yourself.
I want to try to do it myself.
Yeah. You can have to do it as a. Yeah. And we also have to recognize that if we're trying to work with our mind, just becoming more relaxed or becoming more still is not enough. That's not going to work with our mind. That just gets us, that just gives us a break, which is great. We need those. But it doesn't, eventually we have to explore our states of mind, things like that. So,
I think
but
you said it was like sharpening the pencil.
I don't think so. You're reading lots of interesting books, though. So, keep it up. Oh, and Jackie, yes. And Jackie's an excellent meditation teacher. So, I think next month it's visualization meditations, which are, like visualize the Buddha, visualize, whatever. So those are, so it's another, there are lots of different techniques. And so and certain techniques are used for different purposes. Others are just trying to find your, what resonates with you, So, I think a lot of people who are saturated with guilt do well with visualization meditations about purifying that, to let go of that, as opposed to, it just depends. It's a very personal process. Eventually, you keep, you'll end up using them all. So, yes.
For a while now, when I first started meditating, I was able to, feel the breath exiting and entering at the tip of my nose. But somewhere along the way, I lost that. So now, I tried the tunnels, and there's like a brief pause in between the inhale and the exhale where I lose it.
Well, there is a brief pause between the inhale and exhale.
And so I was wondering, that's where I'm most likely to lose sight, lose the focus on my breath. I was wondering if.
No, you have to be with that pause. You haven't lost the breath. We do pause. There is a pause in our breathing. And so, becoming aware of that is part of becoming familiar with your breath, So, but also our breath, if once you get, have a lot of experience with meditating, your breath slows down so much that you might not really, so you're bringing your attention, but it's just a settle, but you get to the settled state pretty quickly and you don't have to, so then you might use, an image of a Buddha, for you developing your concentration. So
If
it's,
your breath gets real shallow, you can think of an image maybe that would help. Like you're not really feeling your breath.
well, it depends on where you are. You don't want to shift objects until you develop some stability, because then you're just, what?
Wondering.
Yeah, you're just shopping for a new, it doesn't mean anything. We need to, like when you lose the breath, because it's really got subtle, that indicates, you've gotten some stability with your meditation. If you lose the breath because you're distracted, you need to keep coming back to it. So that's not when you go, okay, we'll try this instead, because what people do, this is what we do. This is, we want to run away. We want to self-medicate. We just, so people, they develop a meditation on Shakyamuni Buddha, and then, Medicine Buddha arises. Oh, well, I'll just meditate on Medicine Buddha. And then you go, but that isn't your object of meditation. You were just distracting yourself. And you feel fine about it because it's another virtuous object, so why not? But no, you're entertaining yourself. It's like, okay, well, today I think I'll watch, Xena, Warrior Princess, and tomorrow I'll watch, I don't know. A teacher in Australia who learned English from Xena. Oh, it's fabulous. So, yeah.
Is there a technique that would help me be more clear about what I'm feeling? Because I've come to a place where, and I hope it's not my storyline, that I'm adept at stuffing my feelings. I've done it most of my life.
Yeah. But you may just have to, again, it's staying, and then become familiar with the differences of the different feelings, with kids, who suffered a lot of trauma, they'll use pictures, that picture I have all the different smiley faces with different emotions, they'll use them to help them identify what's going on for them, because they don't have names for them. Like you said, if you suppress them a lot, you just, you don't have the right name. Or if you've been told a lot by someone what you're feeling and they're wrong, you've been matching the wrong name up to your feeling.
How about you shouldn't feel that way, you shouldn't think that way?
Yeah, well, we've all been children. We've all had parents who said that. So, yeah, what do you do?
About feelings, how about paying more attention to the sensations? Because feelings, I think, are often patterns of sensations.
Well, no, we express them that way. Yeah, I mean, the mind's first, but we do have habits that are physical that are associated with different states of mind. So fear might look one way, anxiety might look differently. I mean, those are different. If you're not an anxious person, you might not know that. But they're two different states. Anyway, yeah.
But I really appreciate what you said about just being with the feeling, and not, because it's been a few years I've been sad, but I keep giving myself reasons to be sad,
Right.
rather than to sit with the sadness and just be there.
Right. And then it passes. You do something else, it will arise again because that's what happens, and you experience it. We want to break is the habit of feeding these things, because these are storylines. These are, because what we have to understand is that, that our states of mind are reflecting this grasping at a self. That they're arising from that place. So things like, it's easy to see with things like jealousy, that it's because you want something and somebody else has it, or, whatever, whatever the circumstances are, the jealousy to arise. But it's all about grasping at that self, that I want that, I should have that, why don't I have them, whatever. It's just really this, when actually, first of all, happiness isn't out there. Doesn't matter what you get or don't get. It has absolutely nothing to do with happiness. It's, it may be conditions for security or safety or blah, blah, blah. But this grasping at the self is what's generating these things that we respond to with jealousy or sadness or hurt. That the more we can work with them, the less they'll arise at all. And the more we can let go of this intense, eye, there's less of an eye to hurt. Yeah. That makes sense.
I have a friend who's really going through divorce, and she just thinks if she just stays busy, she won't feel sad. And she's like, every night she's trying to,
Yeah.
She's going to come someday. It would be nice if she could learn to sit with her sadness, like you're saying, probably help more than just keeping.
Everybody has to find their pace. It's yeah.
That's so difficult, and it's so painful. Like, the only way I can really kind of wrap my brain around ultimately is that I have two choices with respect to suffering.
Yeah, right.
I can suffer there, or I can suffer through this with the hope of a better time.
Being finished.
Right.
Yeah. And so that, and then, and so as we go through the path and we just, look at more and more different aspects, like this grasping, okay, we're going to die. We're going to lose it all. There's no question about that. But we don't realize that. We keep acting as if surely that's not true. We don't think about it. We don't, and every now and then, like say our best friend gets that horrible diagnosis at the doctor's office, and then we think about it. That's going to be me. So this, every day we're living our life under this faulty premise that we'll be here tonight. I'll wake up tomorrow morning. And so we don't use our time well. We play solitaire more than once. You could effectively argue that playing it once might be too much. But, but the point is that we waste time. And it isn't about becoming obsessive compulsive about, it's not about developing a neurosis about the fact that you're going to die and then can't go outside because, you don't want to take any risk or something. Because let me tell you, you're going to die anyway. Whether you go outside, don't go outside, whether you drive, don't drive, you are going to die. The body fails. It's just a fact. And we don't know when that's going to happen. That's one of the disadvantages of this particular type of existence. It's uncertain how long we'll live. So, it's like those signs, if I'd known I was going to live this long, I'd take better care of myself, and then, the other, if I'd known I wasn't going to live, I would have had more fun, whatever. So, we have no balance. It's so it's about understanding that this false, like I have to exist. I can't let this body be harmed. I have to do everything I can to protect it. We extend it. I can't let my emotions be harmed. I can't let, we just keep making it a bigger thing that has to be protected. All aspects of ourselves have to be protected. And the Buddha said it's all based on something that doesn't exist at all. There's no permanent self to protect. Yes, this body's going to die. Your mind's going to go on, but it's not going to be what we call your mind. We grasp that. Oh, my mind, Tendron's mind. Oh no, we won't miss Tendron's mind. I won't miss Tendron's mind. But it's this, we're just coming from a faulty premise. The more we can loosen our grip and recognize it doesn't matter whether I'm here for 30 more years or I'm here for 30 more minutes, how I spend those 30 more minutes is what's important. Which just means I got to take care of my mind this month, and this month, and this month. And worrying is not a good way to spend it. Anger is not a good way to spend it. Greed is not a good way to spend it. Jealousy is not a good way to spend it. Total self-focus is not a good way to spend it. So it's dropping these habits that aren't taking us, because we keep thinking it's some goal out here when it's not. It's this feeling purposeful and meaningful and whatever is available in every moment. It doesn't have to be a goal. It's just not filling our space with other mental garbage. So if we fill our space with how can I be of help? How are you? What can I do for you? Not always, what do I want? What do I need? What do I blah, blah, blah. Because you're never going to find something that you want or need or want. It's okay. So it's a process, though. We're so far away from this. We start with going, oh, what is going on in my mind? And is it skillful or not skillful? And what can I do about it? And we do little things, and some things fall away, and other things take lots more effort. So, yeah, that's okay.
You speak to the idea of moving your attention. I'm only remembering it from, I think, a Gary Zukav book or something. An idea, and I just maybe just stuck with me. I'm not sure I understand what it really means. So, is that
when you say moving my attention?
Well, it seemed like a practice that was described
Okay.
of some kind. I think of it as the balance that you talked about. Maybe you've also heard recently this comparisons of prison to the classroom as ways of looking at things from shifting your perspective, I guess, in a way.
And that's, yeah, I mean, I don't know because I don't know what this person wrote about it. But one of the things, this idea of stepping back is developing this ability to look at it from a different angle. So you give yourself some distance. And then sometimes what you need to do is you look at it from someone else's point of view. What does the other person think about this? How would they evaluate this? So that we can shake up our view of it. We get such a fixed kind of sense of things, and all our filters are going on. All of our expectations, our preconceived notions, all of that kind of stuff. Whatever's happened yesterday, all of that's there, and so it's really helpful to try to look at it from as many different angles as you can, to recognize it doesn't exist any of those ways. That it's, there's nothing really to hold on to there. It's just a matter of, is this is this a moment I can take anything from? Am I carrying a story with it? Or can I just look at it as just this moment, from different angles? And often if we just, especially if you have the habit of worry or what's that word they use? Ruminating, or there's another word too. But if you just keep revisiting the same thing again and again and again, you need to move your attention. You just need to direct yourself somewhere else.
Perseveration.
Oh, that's a word I'm likely to never remember or never be able to spell or pronounce. I'm terrible at sound. But this, whatever I'm going to take their word for it. But this, so we want to, so I thought, what did she asked.
I'm gonna read your I've been holding it for like a while.
Go. Well, we just have 10 minutes, but I'd still go. Okay, so, I'm sorry. Okay, but this change, so if we have that kind of habit of, like worrying something to death, or, you just keep revisiting that by itself is something that you just can practice changing your attention. So that every time it comes back, you might think of it once that day, but every time it comes back, you go, I'm not going there again. I'm going to go do this. And you have to pick things. It's like anything. Like when you have an addiction and you have to focus on something else. You have to find something that will grab your attention for a while. When I was quitting smoking, I carried a book with me all the time. So I always had something to read, and it was just, because then I didn't have an excuse. Oh, okay, you brought your book, read your book. And I know it's not the same, but read your book. I have to do. So, but it's the same thing. Oh, there's that habit energy coming up. I'm going to look elsewhere and just, keep doing that. And then it will come up less. Because what you're doing is not giving it any power. You're giving it saying, I'm not going to focus on that. Because that's, as soon as it grabs our attention, we're giving it all the power. If we just say, nope, not doing it.
Is that a good time to meditate?
Well, it can be. If you're driving, please don't. So it just depends. Everything sort of just depends. And so it's, so it's just, but
That's where when I fail at that, that's where I have to be very careful because that habit of mine is from decades old. I cannot sit there and judge myself every time I go there, and
Right.
succeed.
Right.
I will. Oh, I'm there.
I didn't even bring up the word judge.
No, but I'm bringing it up because it sounds to me when you said, "Oh, just you have to do this," and I think, well, that's the crux of it right there. When you make that decision, that choice, it's in that choice, in that very small moment of time, that I often fail.
Of course. Absolutely. If you have the expectation of succeeding, you're going to be disappointed. I'm not kidding. This takes practice. First, you just have to be aware. Oh man, I go there a lot. Oh, there I am again. Wow.
Actually rejoice in that awareness.
Yes, because that's the first step. If you don't know you're doing it, you can't do anything about it. So first, you just have to notice, and then it can. This is when it can get amusing. Because it's like, are you kidding me? This is where I go in. But we do. We do. And we're going to, and it's like, you'll think you'll have some habit really kind of like, oh, I've gotten really mad. And then something happens and it's bam. Oh yeah, I'm no better. Which isn't true. It just means, there are certain conditions where it's harder. So we just have to, okay, this is what is. Instead of saying, why can't I, instead of making up a story and not just accepting, okay, there I am, So it cannot last as long. Yeah.
I have boss who said, I don't expect perfection in the moment, just improvement over time. And I think that's completely in a different context. But what you're saying reminds me of that. Is if you sit down and expect to meditate perfectly every single time,
You'll never meditate.
Yeah.
You'll just be focusing on
what I'm doing wrong today.
Right. and although
what I
we're
do.
good at that, we can be single pointed on our faults. It's not skillful.
I'm very good at that.
Yeah. This is why we know we have these skills. It's about directing our attention where we want it to be, as opposed to where it's been. And that takes practice. It just, so I know that's not a helpful habit. I'm going to go somewhere else. And you do it 800,000 times. I'm not kidding. I mean, I exaggerate, but really.
That 800,000.
Rinpoche, one time I was in a class with Chuten Rinpoche on the Hell Realms, which was really scary. They got to something and they did the math. Rinpoche's pulling out, it says, oh, okay, who has the calculator? And they figured out exactly what a kilochasm was and all of that. So it's actual math. I mean, it's not just names that, it's really hilarious to watch that. So, okay, so we're at the end of this class. And so for a how to meditate class, we certainly didn't do a whole lot of meditation. So I encourage you to go to Jackie's meditation class. No, but anyway. But if you've been able to try to, you've been able to do some meditations kind of consistently, just, keep it up. It really will benefit. And in the next course, if you come to the next course, you'll have some new topics to look at or whatever. I mean, so and if of course, if something you're really struggling with something, you can always ask me for something for that, so, what should I be reading on that and what to look at, for that, because it's, there may be some technique that's really helpful with a particular issue. So, feel free to email me. But that daily habit of trying to just spend a few moments getting familiar with the stillness of the mind is really helpful. So if nothing else, try for that. And then when you have a little more time on a weekend or whatever, then you tackle something that's longer. And it's really, some of these things can really be life-changing if you put them in, it's like, you can't imagine going a day without meditating. I mean, you will, because life happens, but it's just different. So, but I thank you for your participation and showing up and all those good things. Next week, right?
Yeah, but Jackie's visualization.
Starts on Monday. And this class is, like I said, death and rebirth. So if you're interested in the Buddhist path, this is a big topic, this idea of rebirth. What is that, but also, trying to get us to realize our impermanence is helpful. Not because it's depressing, but because it's a fact. Just the way it is. So what else is coming up? We have a animal liberation, animal blessing coming up a week from Saturday over at Quiet Rivers Park, which costs $1.50 to get in. And there'll be more information emailed out.
Friday night before that.
Oh yeah, we'll do, if people are into mantras, we say a lot of mantras over the worms to bless them before we put them in the ground. Sounds bad, but they like living there. So, anyway. But today you want to dedicate, so doing this tonight, we've done it since the beginning of the class, we generated a lot of merit, partly because we're trying to look at things differently, just differently, and trying to use different techniques to help us look at things differently. This can really help us loosen our grasp on thinking that things are the way I see them, and forgetting that, it's all through your own filters. Things aren't really like that. So that's good. That's good stuff. So that, according to the teachings, will result in positive results in our future. Resources or pleasant experiences. Beautiful environments, things like that. So what we want to make the wish is we want to make this dedication. We want to give it away to others to develop the habit of a generous mind. And to also understand our interdependence, that our happiness is actually dependent on others' happiness. We are so interdependent. So we want to keep that in our mind. So you just make you rejoice about, oh, gee, I've been working on my mind. This is cool. You know, that's a positive activity. You know, we could probably all think of a million people right away that we wish would work on their minds. But we're part of their group, so, you know, so we just, you know, sense of humor is helpful.
Is it Friday night?
That's a week from tomorrow. So, so we also try to make it, you know, we want our positive results not to exhaust until everybody's free of suffering. That makes it as easy as possible. So, feel good about that. Set a intention to get home safely. Go to the next activity. You know, if you're going home and there's someone there waiting for you, you know, leave your worries of the day behind and be grateful. There's someone waiting for you. So that's wonderful. And if there's not, and you like that, that's wonderful too. So, never worry. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank
you.
And also, everyone, just remember for meditation practice, Sunday mornings, every Sunday, 10:15 to 10:45. And if this is your first night of this session and you would like some readings, leave me your email out here. Thank you.
And Nicole, you recorded.
Okay. Yes, yes, absolutely.
So you can take it?